Good morning. It is time to skip the BS, time for Undisputed, time to talk Super Bowl fallout with Richard Sherman and Keyshawn Johnson. Morning, gentlemen.
What's happening, Skippy?
How we doing?
Pretty good.
You guys have been making a lot of noise before this show starts. I hope we're about to hear it now, right?
We definitely are.
Okay, all right, here we go. USA Today's Jarrett Bell is one of the most respected NFL columnists, a man I've worked with going way back in the day, a man I've known for 42 years, a journalist, not known for overreaction. So I took these words to heart and to the bank when I read them this morning from Jarrett Bell, who wrote, "Imagine what the reaction would have been if Terrell Owens had screamed into the face and bumped his coach during a heat-of-the-moment tantrum in the middle of the Super Bowl, or Antonio Brown, or A.J. Brown, or Tyreek Hill." Jarrett continued to write, "I'm guessing the reaction would have been much different if a high-profile, supercharged, and competitive black player unloaded on his coach with the same tacky irreverence that Travis Kelce demonstrated with his blow-up on Andy Reid in Super Bowl LVIII. Instead, Jarrett Bell wrote, after Kansas City, of course, won a second straight Super Bowl, Kelce was able to laugh off the incident, and Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes were able to dismiss it as just competitive fire. So, Richard, please, you first. Does Jarrett Bell have a point?
I mean, yeah, you got a point. You're a black man in America. It's been like that since for a long time, but at the end of the day, in this situation, they won the ball game. That's why it's not a big deal. That's why it's not going to get blown up the way everybody would expect it to any other time. If they lost this game, we'd be sitting there saying that was the reason, that was the breaking point. Hey, this may be the end of the dynasty. That's when the things start crumbling right there. The pressure got to be too much. Was it the Taylor Swift effect? We'd be talking about all that. They won the game. So that's why they get to downplay it. They get to say it wasn't that big a deal. Andy Reid's going to downplay it. But you're right. If it was A.J. Brown, if it was A.B., if it was T.O. back in the day, I mean, we'd be talking about that being a storyline of his career, of his legacy, of who he is. 100%. This situation is different. I mean, we talked about C.D. Lamb and Dak when all C.D. Lamb did was just walk away. He nodded his head and then walked away and sat on the sideline, didn't say anything. And we still talked about how he was on the sideline and his actions and was he
remember Mike McCarthy felt like he needed to go over and sort of talk him back up, you know, like yeah.
And this situation, Travis went and said whatever he said to Andy, bumped him, and did all that, and we're going to downplay it because they won the game. So I mean, Jarrett has a point, but at the end of the day, they won the game, so that's how it goes.
Okay, but will it resonate? In fact, you said something to me during a break yesterday, I believe. Like, will some kid somewhere say, I can do that to my coach? Because I saw Travis Kelce do it. That's just how you react? Is that how you...
That was key. That he was trying to teach the kid. That wasn't you?
It must have been Michael. It wasn't me. Because I promise you it wasn't me.
No.
Because badass kids going to do what they do anyway.
Right.
I mean, that's just the reality of it in sports. I deal with youth sports.
You do.
Trust me,
you do.
Skip.
Yes.
They going to do it anyway.
Right.
Jarrett Bell, I don't know if you know him, Richard, at all, but Jarrett Bell is 100% accurate. Mm-hmm. It's 100% accurate.
Have you dealt with Jarrett?
Oh, my God. It's like one of my closest, one of my closest journalist buddies.
Yep.
But everybody plays the rules are different for everybody.
No question.
They're just different for everybody, right? And what I mean by that, and I'm not talking about Kelce being white and these other guys being black. They're different for everybody. And what I mean by that is the people in the booth who's calling the game, they're the ones who start from the top to the bottom that bring the attention.
That is true.
If they drive it home, a la Joe Buck, Minnesota Vikings, Randy Moss, Green Bay Packers. He drove it home. You may not remember this because you was in high school or so at the time. He drove the mooning home.
It was
to
at
a point,
Lambeau. Yeah.
To a point where it's probably one of his darkest moments in his illustrious broadcasting career. Am I right or wrong, Skip? And he has attested to that.
Because of that, became one of Randy's darkest moments.
It became one of Randy's darkest moments because he drives it home.
Right. They did not drive it. Jim and Tony did not drive this home. They did not. No.
They did not. So whenever you see the people upstairs calling the games, they drive those things home. I know because I've lived on it, on the other end of it.
You have.
They didn't drive it home with me. They would just say, hey, he's a fiery player. This is what they like about him. His intensity, his this, he's that. Whether it was in Tampa Bay with John Gruden on a Monday night, this is who Keyshawn is. He's just mad right now, but this is the best of him. Whether it was me and Coach Parcells getting into it after I got a 15-yard penalty for protecting my teammate, Skip, when somebody dove on top of him, I ran over and, just moved him along slightly with my leg. But I took points off the board, and Coach Parcells and I, we went back and forth in a shouting match. But they didn't drive it home. They didn't turn me into the bad guy.
The media did.
The media didn't turn me into the bad guy. But when it comes to guys like T.O. and Antonio Brown, and so not necessarily A.J. Brown, because they'll just say A.J. Brown is asking for the football. But Antonio Brown and T.O., for whatever reason, they have a bad history with the media. And because of that, things that they do, even though T.O. ain't never done nothing, off the field, they still drive it home as if he is just this cancer of a guy. But
I've seen it done. I mean, it got done to me a few games where, I was pissed at Pete and those guys. They had done something. I think it was one of those moments where he threw the ball from the goal line again and almost got picked again.
Wasn't my fault.
And
it was like a Monday night
It was like a Monday night game. And I said, what are you doing? What are you doing? You thought that we just dealt with this. Like, don't do this like this. We win in this game.
And they probably drove it home from upstairs.
And they drive it home. But that's the thing. You just don't see it. And to Jarrett's point, you just don't see them doing that to white players. Black players, they do it all the time. And you're like, man, he's just like, this level of frustration, this is detrimental, this is yada. But you do hear them say, man, that's just competitive spirit in this situation.
It depends on who you're talking about.
It
depends on who you're talking about, Richard, because if it's Bill Romanowski, they was going to call him a dirty player. They were going to do that because he was so dirty, you couldn't avoid going at him when you calling games. You just couldn't. You just couldn't.
I mean, all he did on Monday Night Football was spit in the face of J.J. Stokes.
Yeah, yes. So you couldn't give him a pass. Kelce is a different, as I said yesterday, there's a relationship that's there with the head coach. He's a likable guy, Skip. He's dating the pop superstar of the world. So it's just different rules for everybody.
Right, and that's to his point. It just would be different rules if it was a different situation, different scenario. Even the Rashee Rice incident, where Rashee Rice kind of came at Patrick Mahomes. I don't know if you caught that.
I didn't catch it.
I didn't either.
After he went to Travis Kelce, being guarded by Fred Warner. Rashee Rice was wide open in the middle of the field.
It was the last play of regulation when he tried to go for the touchdown.
When he tried to go for the touchdown, Rashee Rice was wide open over the middle of the field in a sit route, would have caught it, scored a touchdown, ended the game. And him and Patrick Mahomes had a moment. And they were like, hey, like he has no business talking to his quarterback like that. He was hot. Like, hey, bro, throw me the ball when this game is over with already. And they handle it a lot differently. I don't know how you missed that one.
I probably who knows.
Rashee Rice is a rookie playing in his Super Bowl. You know, like, man, you got to know where the boundaries are.
But again, it comes from upstairs, though.
Right, that's what I mean.
So when it comes from upstairs, Skip, down to you, people focus in on it. And they make it, if they didn't say anything about Rashee Rice going at Patrick Mahomes, you would never even paid attention to it. But that's on them, as far as I'm concerned.
But that's how the story is told.
Yeah.
And so, and any great announcer, their main job is to add context to the story, add context to the game, not take over the game, not be the storyline of the game, but just add story. But they control the narrative. So if somebody goes, they can say, if they say Travis Kelce is competitive, that's what it is.
You know how they go.
That's what Jarrett's saying.
Okay. So I believe in every word that he wrote.
Yes.
You know him and I know him, and he's not prone to going over the top with things. This was from his heart, and it was 1,000% correct. And as a journalist, I was a little ashamed that more didn't get made of it during and right after the game. But to Richard's point, to the victor go the spoils. And once you win the Super Bowl and once you've won back-to-back, it's just hard to go back in there and fixate on a moment that ended up not mattering.
Right.
But just to me as a sports fan, as a lover of sports, it still galls me that he got away with it because I didn't like it. I know you said, well, it's just the heat of the moment, and you've been through it because you were relating. You know how you felt numerous times, and it's hard to control and contain yourself in the emotion of those moments. But I thought it displayed a sense of empowerment and entitlement in Travis Kelce, who was the central figure all week long because of her. And we're going to talk in a few minutes about how this was the most watched television show in the history of television. And that's in part because of her and their relationship. And it felt to me like Travis Kelce was screaming in the face of a man who got in his way. Don't you get in my way again. How dare you take me out of the football game, because he wasn't in on the play upon which Isaiah Pacheco fumbled after Mahomes had hit the 52-yard pass that gave him whatever it was, first and goal at the 9. Right. Next play, fumble. I don't know why Travis Kelce wasn't in the game. I guess they decided they could put a better blocking tight end for that sweep left or that play.
Different personnel grouping, probably.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, for him, it was such an ugly episode in what was such a great day and game and halftime show. It was just great. Mm-hmm. I loved every minute of it, down to the last drop and the last pass to Mecole Hardman. But that sticks in my craw and in my psyche as a very ugly Super Bowl moment that felt, because when you look into Travis Kelce's face, he has lost it. He is completely over the top, out of control. And he did bump into Andy and knock him off balance. And here's the difference. You used to get into it with Bill Parcells and John Gruden, in part because they started it. You know, they would say something to you, and you're like, I'm not going to take that from you. Right. I know John Gruden. I covered John Gruden. I watched John Gruden one day after practice get into it with the great Al Davis. And I know and I knew and loved Al Davis. But they got into it in a screaming match, the likes of which I have never seen between an owner and a coach out in front of everybody on the practice field. It was as ugly as it gets, but it wasn't on television. Mm-hmm. So my point is, John Gruden was an instigator. John Gruden loved to push buttons, and he was pushing Al Davis's button, and Al was pushing back. Right. And he would push your button, and you would really push back. But it's usually because he started it. You know what I mean? He would say something to you. Andy was an innocent bystander in this one. He's trying to look at his call sheet and got blindsided, and nearly, because he wasn't expecting, he nearly lost his balance and tumped over. Right. So to me, I don't know that I've ever seen anything quite like this.
Well, you know, Skip, I look at it as Travis Kelce is just in the moment. It's the moment. They just fumbled. He's not on the field. I don't know exactly what he was saying to the coach. You know, I don't know. He didn't shove him. No. You know, he bumped into him like to get his attention. As you said, Andy's looking at the play call sheet, and he bumps him. So I disagree. I love Travis. Travis is a fantastic human being, great player. He's a good friend. But at the end of the day, I've been there where I've lost my mind on the sideline. They gave no passes. They gave no passes. They only won the game. But that's what Jarrett is saying, is that there's a pass here. We won the game, all that. After the game, they were still like, this sideline tirade by Richard Sherman, yada, yada, yada. And it's like, you go on to win the game, but it's treated differently. That was a tirade. That was a situation. It is treated differently,
where
Richard.
It wasn't even like it was a pass play. So it wasn't even like, hey, they would have maybe targeted him on that play. It was a run play. He's frustrated. You get to be frustrated. But the only reason Andy didn't fall was because Travis held him up. He bumped him and then held him up.
True.
And then went on about, his deal. If he wouldn't have held him up, he definitely would have failed, because he wasn't expecting it at all. And I don't even know if he was in charge of the decision you're mad about. Usually your position coaches are running through, hey, it's G personnel, or they think you need a break, or run him out. Hey, go get him real quick. And so I don't even know if he's mad at the right person, but it just was one of those situations. If they lost this game, that moment would be a huge part of
but they didn't lose the game. They won it. But it was not. Jim Nance and Tony Romo didn't emphasize it. They didn't put a lot of yeast on it to make it bigger than what it was. There's no question that Jarrett Bell, if this was some of the other skill position black players, that they probably would have leaned into it a little bit more. That's how the television broadcasting teams do it, man. That's the reality of it. I've seen it. I've lived it. I've witnessed it myself. That's what they do. Now, to your point, she's in the box. The last thing that CBS would want to do is embarrass the National Football League by bringing more attention to something so egregious to people's eyes.
Right.
They don't, let's not do that.
And that's a lot of Jarrett's point that we're talking about.
I get it.
That doesn't make it right. That makes
no one said it's right.
An executive decision by the NFL, by CBS, a money decision where we're saying, hey, this is our storyline. This is our baby. This is our bread and butter. We're not going to sully this story by making a big deal of something that is actually a big deal in this game.
Well, it's just like anything, Skip. You've been covering this thing for a very long time, and you've seen the evolution of television and everything and how they call games. And we always joke about the white player's a sneaky smart guy. They use those words, he's fast, he's first one in, last one out the building, he's sneaky fast. Blue collar, hard worker. That's the narrative. That's what they do.
Okay.
Look. What are you going to do?
Let's be honest. You know Travis. I don't know if you know him.
Yeah, I know Travis very well.
Okay. He has not been a choir boy in his past.
No.
At Cincinnati, he got suspended for a whole year. He had multiple, it was just marijuana positives. Okay, whatever. Yeah. But he got suspended for a year. And he's had little issues. He's had little issues that became almost big issues with Andy. He threw his helmet, fired his helmet down against the Raiders, and Andy didn't like it because Andy told the equipment guy to take his helmet and keep it for a while. He kept him out of the game for maybe a quarter or so, and he went over to Travis, and it looked to me like during that Raiders game, he even gave Travis a little bit of shove, like he's trying to wake him back up, like you've lost it, you're out of control. You need to calm back down before I put you back in the football game. And it was maybe a quarter where he, quote unquote, got benched. Remember back in training camp, Travis lost it during a practice and punched one of his teammates. I don't even know which teammate it was, but it had
somebody that probably deserved to be punched.
Maybe, but do you remember the hey,
what?
Do you remember the Romanowski incident?
Oh yeah, with the Raiders when he hit the broke the guy's eye socket.
He hit him right in the eye socket. Just crushed. Marcus Williams, is that his
I don't remember the name.
I may be wrong with the name.
Broke his whole face.
But just
damn.
Hey.
Yeah, he would have to see me.
Hey.
Until the end of the time.
To the end of time.
Like I'm pulling up to your job at 63.
Yeah.
Hey,
yeah,
brother,
there you go.
Remember that one time?
Yeah.
We got to handle this.
Yeah, we got to handle this. Okay, so the point is he has some history here, and none of that gets taken into account off this incident. So it's ironic to me and very fitting that I'm talking to you two because in weird ways, you did get a reasonable and right pass because I think the generally white media viewed you as an extremely passionate football player.
Yeah, that's what I said. They treated me differently.
And they knew that you competed your tail off. Like you blocked, you did everything. You did everything asked of you.
Yeah.
And so it's not that they gave you a pass, they just kept it in the correct context.
Absolutely,
of who you were.
100%. And that's what I said earlier. I'm like, everybody gets treated differently.
Right.
They didn't look at me and say, Keyshawn is acting this way because he's selfish, he's this, he's that. They used the words as passionate.
They did.
Competitive.
Nobody ever said selfish about you. I never heard it.
Never that sort of stuff.
Never diva, never look at me, 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 me. There was none of that directed at you. You were also treated a little differently because, if I can speak for the white media, we knew you were really smart and really knew how to play football, and you were also extremely competitive to the point of over-emotional competitive. So when you would lose it at Pete Carroll, I still think nobody completely condemned it because They always knew you were right.
See,
about
if he went to Sac State,
right?
He wouldn't have used the word smart. He went to Stanford.
Okay. Well, Vanderbilt, Stanford, we have a connection here, right? Yeah.
I went to that one school, the private school in LA.
Little school. Yeah.
We run the entire state.
Yeah.
In what way?
Everything.
I can tell you some executives that would say otherwise.
Yeah.
But, you know, they went to my school.
No.
And those executives work for the people that own the buildings that went to my school. So let's not get started.
I don't think so. I think it might be the other way around. Yeah.
Yeah, a couple nerds at Stanford.
Okay.
Big deal.
Nerd Nation.
Okay, but even you were put to me in a different context that was a reasonable context where, yes, you did become a story, and win, lose, or draw, you were a story, but I never felt condemnation about it. And in this case with Travis, I felt like he got a complete pass from most people because it just came and went, because he rose and shone in the second. He caught 8 balls for 92 yards.
They won,
what are you going to say?
Everything.
Right?
Skip, they won.
Okay, but did it erase everything?
Yeah, I mean,
it did.
Technically,
it did.
Winning does that.
Exactly.
They called me a full thug after an NFC Championship game. That one time I did that interview, they called me a full thug after that.
Well, you was outraged. You were screaming at that poor lady.
Poor lady. Aaron was great. I gave her a hug.
You were screaming at her.
That's a great friend of mine.
And she hung right in.
Yeah, she's a champ.
Yeah.
But I think winning, as you said, cures everything. It erases everything. It makes it a laughable storyline. They get to joke about it. They get to laugh about it. If it doesn't, then in that same situation, after a loss, they're asking them about that tirade over and over. I guarantee you the response is going to be totally different.
So he was able to tell the media, I was just telling Andy how much I loved him. Okay. And ha, 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 next, right?
That's what winning does.
I think they just got a good relationship, too, though.
And they do. And I buy that. Yeah. I do buy that.
He realized he wouldn't be who he is without Andy Reid.
Okay, and Andy realized at that moment, that flashpoint moment, I ain't winning this Super Bowl without him, so I think I'm going to just look the other way and let's go on to the next play.
And that's wisdom and age and wisdom from Andy. Hey, I'm not going to react emotional. He just losing his mind a little bit right now. He'll be back later. He'll be all right.
And he came back. Okay, up next, speaking of the Super Bowl, wait a second. Kyle Shanahan and some of his players didn't know the new playoff overtime rules? Seriously? Thanks for watching, Undisputed fans. Do you want more highlights from the show? Make sure to click that subscribe button for all the exclusive content from Undisputed.